And Hillel said, if you find any kind of indecency in your wife at all, and you can call indecency whatever you want to call it, you're free to divorce her. Shammai says, no. Only if she gets caught. Only if she gets caught in adultery, in the actual physical act of adultery, is she. So these two schools of thought kind of lived on among the Pharisees. What does this verse mean? Now, and so this is what they're doing. They're going to Jesus and they're trying to mess with him. Okay, because if he sides with Shammai, then they're gonna kind of work it so that he's wrong. And if he sides with Hillel, they're going to kind of work it so he's wrong. They're trying to trap him. Okay, this is what the Pharisees are always doing, and they're never successful because he's smart and they're dumb, and so it never really works out for them, and it doesn't here either. And so that's what the controversy is, and that's the context of this question. And so they're coming to Jesus with this question. This is a hotly debated subject, and so verses 3 through 5 says, he answered them, "What did Moses command you?" They said, "Moses allowed a man to write a certificate of divorce and to send her away." And Jesus said to them, "Because of your hardness of heart, he wrote you this commandment." Okay? Jesus is going to go right back to the spirit of the law. Why was this law here? Why did Moses write this commandment? Okay, because the Pharisees, and they really should have known better. They should have been smarter than this. But they were looking at this law completely backwards. Okay? They were taking this... well, let's just read verses 1 through 4. This will help us. And then we'll kind of dissect what this law is actually saying. And then we'll get back to what the Pharisees were doing with it. Okay? Deuteronomy 21, 1 through 4. This is the law in question, and this is pretty much the only time when divorce and remarriage is talked about explicitly in the Old Testament. And so this is the one that they're going to argue about. When a man takes a wife and marries her, if then she finds no favor in his eyes because he has found some indecency in her, and he writes her a certificate of divorce and puts it in her hand and sends her out of his house, and she departs out of his house, and if she goes and becomes another man's wife, and the latter man hates her or loves her less or decides he doesn't want her anymore, and writes her a certificate of divorce and puts it in her hand and sends her out of his house, or if the latter man dies who took her to be his wife, then her former husband who sent her away may not take her again to be his wife after she has been defiled, for that is an abomination before the Lord. And you shall not bring sin upon the land that the Lord your God is giving you for an inheritance. Okay, so what is going on here? This is a then if kind of a law. Okay, this is a then if kind of a law. And what I mean by that is this is God writing some regulations to bring civility and to bring decency and to bring order and niceness to a sin-cursed world. Okay, God's plan has always been that people stay married. That's always been his plan. But he's also planned that no one ever steals or lies or is proud or and no one punches anybody in the face. And God's planned, his moral plan, his moral will is pretty awesome. But as you can tell by, just walking around outside or walking into your house or hanging out with me, it doesn't actually exist. God's actual plan doesn't exist in his ideal. You understand? His moral plan doesn't actually exist. His sovereign will is fine. God's king of everything, and he's not afraid of anything, and everything's good. But his actual moral will is not being acted out by most people ever. Okay? So what is happening here is Moses, because of the hardness of people's hearts, okay, which means the rebellion, the sin, the fall, the cursed earth that we live in, the sinful natures, Moses has written a regulation here basically to protect women from compulsive men. Okay? What's going on, for one thing you have to understand, and really me just saying this doesn't really drive it across, but women were treated as property in this part of the world, in this part of history. Women were seen as property. Okay? And so what would happen was, say my wife, Denise, her father is rich. And he's not, but I was deceived. That's basically why I married her. Terrible plan. Should have done better research. Anyhow, so she is, her father is rich. I marry her. He gives me a dowry. Okay? I get mad at her. I want to divorce her for whatever reason. For whatever reason. And I know everybody in here is thinking it'd definitely be the other way around. Anyhow, but I get mad at her and I want to divorce her for whatever reason. I put her away. She gets married again. She gets a second dowry. The law said that if that husband dies or if he puts her away, she may keep that second dowry. But the law also says that I may not marry her again to get that money. That's what's going on here. Okay, this is a protection law. This is maintaining civility law. You understand? What would happen? What would happen is that the man would see, hey, she's got money again. I'm going to marry her again. And many times there's nothing the woman could do about it. Men were compulsive, and they could do what they wanted to. Okay? So this is a law protecting. This is a law making sure that that doesn't happen. Okay? This is a law making sure that doesn't happen. This is okay, and so hopefully you're following along here and you can understand the Pharisees are looking at this all wrong. They're looking at this all wrong. They're taking the part that God doesn't want to happen, and they're trying to find what they can do with it. You understand? God is saying, if this happens, He's not saying this should happen. He's not saying go do this. He's saying, the world is screwed up, so this is going to happen. And if it does, this is what you do. The law part is in verse 4. Okay, that's what the commandment is. The commandment is, hey, dude, don't marry her again. You can't do it. You can't marry her again. And this is all about the second dowry. It's all about getting that money again. You can't do it. It's wrong. You can't do it. It's against the law. So what Moses is doing here is he's making sort of an emergency law. He's not making an idealistic law. He doesn't want this to happen. But the Pharisees are looking at it and they're saying, well, I wonder how we can let men divorce their wife. I wonder for what reason. They're looking at it all wrong. Do you understand? They're looking at the wrong part of the law, and they're dissecting the wrong part of the law, and they do not understand the heart of God. They never understand the heart of God. They never understand the intention of God. They always look at the wrong part of the law, and they try to dissect it. They struggle this way. We struggle this way. We struggle this way. And so that's what's going on in this passage. So Jesus is saying, it's because of the hardness of your heart He wrote you this commandment. It's because there's sin in your hearts. There's sin in your lives. There's sin in your relationships. And then He says in verse 6 through 9, but from the beginning of creation, God made them male and female. Therefore a man shall leave his father and mother and hold fast to his wife, and the two shall become one flesh, so they are no longer two but one flesh. And then He says, what therefore God has joined together, let not man separate. Jesus is pushing the refresh button here. Jesus is pushing the refresh button. Sin has been really, really, really messing things up for quite a few years now. And now you've also got these religious leaders who say, you have to divorce a wife if she's caught in adultery. You have to divorce a wife if you suspect her of adultery. You have to divorce her. And Jesus is saying, no. Here Jesus is saying the opposite. He's saying God is the one. You may not have thought this when you were getting married, but God is the one who has placed you two together. God is the one who has placed you together. We're very big on the sanctity of life. We're very big on that. We're very big on things that are in God's hands. We don't mess with the sanctity of life. We don't play God with other things, and we shouldn't play God with marriage as well. It's something that God has done. You may not have realized it at the time, but God is the one who joins a man and his wife together.